Let's have some straight talk about COVID in this pandemic, shall we? First of all, it didn't come from bats at a market. It came from a lab in Wuhan, China. Or as President Trump would say, China. There's way too many mutations that have happened very quickly. That's not something that typically occurs with natural viruses. Also, if this was really an organic, naturally forming virus, why all the secrecy in China when news first broke? Why the cover-up? Why didn't the Chinese Communist government cooperate fully with the WHO instead of impeding them at every turn? Now, while there's no smoking gun, all, and I mean all, other indicators and evidence leads to the leaked lab as the cause of this entire pandemic. Well, what's even more criminal is the fact that the Chinese, when they knew about what it was, they still let their citizens, while they couldn't travel domestically, they let them travel overseas. Theory being, they wanted everybody to equally suffer. They didn't want their economy to be devastated while everybody else prospered. So there is a strong argument to be made that the Chinese Communist government deliberately spread this virus all over the world. And if that's true, they've got millions of people's deaths on their hands. But last year, liberals in 2020, during the 2020 election, they wanted to make sure Donald Trump lost the election. So they didn't want to point fingers where they really belonged at the Chinese Communist government in Beijing. No, they'd rather blame Donald Trump. They even ridiculed him when he said he'd ensure that we'd have a vaccine, a working vaccine ready by the end of 2020. They said he was irresponsible for such talk and a snake oil salesman. And what happened? Operation Warp Speed did it. The finest hour of the Trump presidency. He'll be remembered in history for that. The vaccine was approved, and mysteriously though, right after the November election. Well, here we are now. More Americans have died in 2021 under Biden than did under President Trump in 2020. But Joe Biden doesn't get nearly the scrutiny and blame that Donald Trump got. Well, anyway, we now have the latest variant of this virus. It's Omicron. So let's follow the science. Omicron seems to be really easy to transmit, but largely has mild symptoms. And from what we know thus far, it's much less dangerous than the original virus or even the formerly predominant Delta variant. We also have monoclonal antibodies to treat the virus if you do get it. And I did get it, by the way, last February, and I dang near died. But the antibodies saved my life. And what's Joe Biden doing now? Hoarding that supply, which is just unconscionable. And if you do get the virus, I would beg you to get the monoclonal antibodies. But we also have, the FDA is approving an antiviral treatment in pill form as well to combat the virus if you get it. And at this point, we've had about, from all news reports and then data that we've seen, about 60% of Americans are fully vaccinated. And another large percentage have natural immunity. That's something the press never wants to talk about. It's the same thing if you have the antibodies. And there we have these highly effective treatments for the virus as well if you do get it. So guess what? While COVID isn't over, the national emergency is. The pandemic is. COVID may very well be with us like the flu for years to come, maybe the rest of our lives. But the national emergency to shut things down has ended. This continued infringement upon American liberties serves no purpose except to exert control. What Joe Biden has done this year is proven he's very good at taking away our liberties and freedoms with mandates and supporting Democratic government shutdowns in the states, but he hasn't made any of us any safer. Reason being here is when you mix politics with medicine, which the Democrats have done, you get two things. You get bad politics and bad medicine.